Welcome back to Financial Therapy. It's not just about the money. I'm personal financial planner, columnist, and financial therapist Rick Kahler. Research tells us that 90% of all financial decisions are made emotionally, not logically. For nearly 4 decades, I've been helping people make better money decisions. So what makes my financial worldview different from most financial experts? I blend the nuts and bolts of financial advice with the emotions that drive making them. Good money decisions are not just about the money. So let's get started with today's episode. Welcome back to another episode. Recently, I came across, it's not for the first time, but I came across the idea of parents paying children, senior parents, paying adult children for healthcare services. And went back and checked on this, and in 15 to 20 years, something I've never written on. And I recently had a client that elected to do this. And my first response was, wow, how emotionally healthy, which continues to be my response. It's not like my response changed. And I just got thinking about that and thought it would be worth exploring in our time together today. So I am noticing more of a trend in my older clients of becoming aware and accepting of the fact that they're in decline, that they physically can't do what they have been able to do. And also an acceptance of needing to be proactive, because many of these today who are now seniors went through a period of time when the money script was, you're to provide for your family. And you certainly don't charge for it. And so being put in that role, accepting that role, they came away with a money script that I will never do that to my children. I'm going to care for myself. Now, I'm saying there's a growing awareness of that. I have many clients who are in complete denial that they're in decline, that paying for some in-home health care could be really beneficial to them. I've visited clients who had boards missing and decks and steps, who had exposed wiring, who struggled to care for themselves, to cook for themselves, to clean, and all the basic things, and probably hastened their need for skilled professional care facility. So I don't want to give the idea that denial is gone. It's very much alive. But there's a growing number of seniors that are open to the idea of receiving home health care in a timely manner. And I, again, stress timely, because sometimes a senior can wait too long to come to this awareness. So accepting in-home health care is a fantastic way for seniors to maintain their independence and stay in the comfort of their own homes longer before they really need the full array of assisted living or skilled nursing facilities. So, with all that said, of course there is a cost to in-home health care. It can be expensive. It can be very expensive. So we have a balance here between seniors who could afford the in-home health care, but just refuse because of their money scripts. And I would say this probably hits seniors that are money vigilant. Their money scripts are around paying for something they've done for themselves all their lives. And just the cost, just the emotional shutdown that can come from the cost of that. And there's other seniors that are open to the help, but they just have a super limited budget where they may not be able to afford all the in-home care that they really need. So enter the child. All sorts of money scripts here. Most kids are very happy to help out, to help a parent. The rub becomes in that child maintaining boundaries, maintaining their life, maintaining the responsibilities they have to themselves, their family, employers, and what they can give to a parent. And it probably comes as no surprise that many kids cannot set, choose not to set, have huge money scripts around setting boundaries about what they can and cannot do for a parent. So one possible solution for those seniors who really require in-home health care, but they can't afford professional caregivers, is to consider compensating a child or another family member for providing that assistance. Paying a child or a family member can be a more affordable option than compared to hiring outside help. Outside help, commercial caregivers can cost anywhere from $35 an hour for light tasks like housekeeping, meal prep, making sure a person's taking their medications, running errands, shopping, things like this, up to around $150 or more for someone who will attend medical appointments, who will be will have all of the medical information, who can coordinate the health care, or can manage financial matters. I mean, hiring a financial planner. 150 would be really low. It's probably going to be $250 to $350 an hour. So why do I say that could be a more affordable option to hire a family member? Well, the advantage of paying a family member for this type of care is that it tends to be less expensive. Why? Because the family member doesn't have the same overhead expenses as a commercial provider. Commercial provider has to pay maybe for a brick and mortar office, may have to pay a full amount of benefits for their employees, would have to pay insurance compensation, workman's comp is what I'm trying to say. insurance premiums, other insurance of premiums, advertising, just all, managing a staff and just everything that would be involved. So I find that fair compensation for a family member's services is generally around 50% of what a commercial caregiver or a professional advocate would charge. So what does that mean? That means, probably between $20 and say $75 an hour would be fair compensation to a child. And another benefit that there is in hiring a family member is oftentimes that family member possesses a deeper understanding, right, of the senior's specific needs and preferences. They have, I don't know, it may not be fair to say a greater degree of caring, because I have met caregivers that exceed my ability when it comes to sensitivity and concern and things of that type. So they won't necessarily possess more than that. But overall, hiring a child can result in a much higher quality of care, right? So it's a higher quality of care at a lower price. I think that's called having your cake and eating it too. Now, the one thing a child typically, unless they're a licensed medical provider, can't provide is medical care. And that can be scheduled. That's part of in-home health care. You can have a nurse come once a week to do vitals and check on the senior. You can have them come once a day and check on the senior. I will underscore it needs to be scheduled. Just calling up and getting a nurse to come over in a crisis or on the spur of the moment is not going to happen. It needs to be scheduled, which is a big difference of when you are in assisted living. That help is available on demand 24/7. So the arrangement then of paying a child for services can be mutually beneficial for both the parent and the child. From a financial perspective, it provides significant advantages for the parents. They can get twice as much for the same amount of money. Another way of framing that is they'd have to pay double for the same amount of services, meaning they can probably afford or receive twice the services from the child as they could from the professional or the commercial caregiver. So that's a huge win for parents. For the child, I think something really important is it shows respect for the child. And the child will probably be giving up time at the job, taking off some time, or giving up time with their family. I mean, what is the reason most kids don't give more time to taking care of their parents? They can't afford to. Why? Because they have a job. Why? Because they need the income. So by providing an amount that could be equal or more than what the child is earning on the job can just be a huge win for the child and a huge acknowledgement of their value and the importance it is for them to take care of themselves. For the parent, it can help with any guilt. Not that every parent would have guilt around children providing them services for free. I know parents that completely expect their money script is, my kids will take care of me in my older years. But to those parents that are sensitive to that and might feel some guilt around all that their children are doing for them free, it can really help with that guilt and give them a sense of, self-esteem, that they are really treating their child fairly. And it can also proactively address potential conflicts among siblings. Well, how is that? How many children who have devoted a lot of time to taking care of parents, when the parents pass away and the estate is divided, may feel resentment. And I'm assuming that the estate will be divided equally. And whether they express it or not, whether they want to acknowledge it or not, there almost always is some resentment that, look at all the time I gave, look at the sacrifices I made, and my siblings who didn't are getting the same amount. Now, I'm not saying this in every case. There are some kids that would have absolutely no remorse over the sacrifice they made in taking care of the parents and may have a complete understanding why their siblings couldn't. Nevertheless, it is more fair to, in some way, recognize the service. And again, assuming there's one child that's really provided the service that that child has provided. And paying the child for that in real time, as it was happening, is one way to provide that fairness. Another way is to provide it at death. And I've seen this done where the parent provides an X amount off the top as a thank you, as a compensation to the child for all the care that they gave, and then the remaining is split equally. So there's more than one way to do this, and there's more than one way to be fair, but it can be super proactive. Now, it can cause resentment with the siblings. So why are they paying them? Gee, they didn't offer to pay me. If they were paying me, I would do more. Well, okay, fair enough. Maybe you should offer to do more if you're that child. But there can be money scripts, with the siblings that, they were paid to do it, or that's not fair. They should do it for nothing. If I lived in the same town as the parents, I would do it for nothing. So this is a minefield, right? This is a minefield. You could write a whole book about the money scripts that comes up for everyone in the family around this. I mean, the parent could have, like I said, deep reservations about compensating a child. This is expected. They should provide this for me. Look at everything I did in my life for them. And I didn't ask them to compensate me for being a parent. So a whole book could be written, and no, I'm not going to write it, around everything involved in compensating and accepting compensation from a parent for this type of health. There are other considerations to keep in mind in providing compensated help to a child or from a parent. And there can be an additional amount of emotional strain that can come with a child caring for an ailing and a declining parent. It just can be so heart-wrenching to watch the deterioration, sometimes day by day, week by week, can be really hard because you have that emotional attachment that this is my parent, where a commercial caregiver might actually be able to be more emotionally available for a declining parent because it's not their parent. Where a child can just have so many difficult emotions coming up that it's really hard to be present with those and to be present with the parent. So that can be really rough. Another one is if the parent is just unable to compensate their child or compensate a commercial caregiver. They just can't afford it. That can be really tough. And for the child, the question is, well, what services are available? For example, if a parent doesn't have any money, they can use Title 19 for skilled care. Now, that may be a really tough decision, but that is an option. Or it might involve somehow trying to split up everything amongst other kids that don't live locally, and getting them involved in doing something. And I've alluded to the other one that can cause strain is if the parent just expects the child to providing home health care for nothing. So both of those can create additional emotional and financial difficulties for both parties, and potentially really strain the relationship. A parent can rely on the free care of a child until or to the point that the child just breaks down. The child hits it could be a financial or emotional wall where they're burned out, where they cannot continue to sustain the parent with the care that they demand. And it's especially hard if the child has a hard time setting boundaries with the parent and just keeps giving more and more and more. And what is our normal response to someone who gives more and more? We ask for more and more, right? Because there is no boundary, because the parent cannot even be conscious that they are, the words coming up are using and abusing the child, and it's never that intentional. But that is effectively what's happening. There are also additional risks of conflict of interests if the child that's doing the caretaking holds other roles, such as being the senior's financial advisor or executor of their estate. And why can this be a conflict of interest? Well, they could actually be in a position where they charge too much, especially if they have control of the finances, and open themselves up to claims of elder abuse. And they still can be opening themselves up for claims of elder abuse, even if their charges are reasonable, by siblings who are upset about the matter. So a conflict of interest is not going to appear in most cases, but it's something to be aware of. And of course, another liability is if the child's care is negligent, right? So you're paying yourself a fair wage, but you are not delivering or don't have the competency to deliver the standard of care that they would have received commercially. So you can face legal liability in that case. potentially from a parent that really becomes enraged, depending how serious the negligence is, or from siblings. Now, again, the chances of that are rather remote. But I have seen examples of elder abuse in this situation. So it needs to be something that is paid attention to. And it wouldn't hurt for the child to get some type of errors and omissions insurance. That can be costly, but it's at least worth checking into. Another thing to be aware of as the child and the parent is if you are giving up hours on work or even giving up your job, you need to pay attention to still paying into Social Security. Because it's so easy to make compensation like this a gift. If it's under $17,000 a year per parent, it can be received actually without any taxes. But then again, there's no Social Security. So you kind of stop your earning record and calculation in obtaining Social Security. So it is best if either the child sets up their own LLC, receives payment from the parent, and then pays all the relative expenses and can pay themselves a wage from their LLC where they withhold all of the needed FICA taxes and Medicare taxes and things of that sort. Or, of course, the parent can do that. It provides a little bit more pain in the compensation because they got to take care of all this, or ideally have a bookkeeper that can help take care of that. So it can be a little more complicated. But again, the savings is 50% for the parent, so it should not be a huge deal that can't be overcome. So, in the bottom line, the decision of whether to pay a child for in-home health care is very personal, very dependent on individual circumstances, and very dependent on a person's money scripts. So, if you're going to consider that, take into consideration the cost, what can I afford, and as a child, what is adequate compensation and fair compensation for me? The emotional considerations, what are all of the money scripts that are involved in this, and the legal aspects. What legal risks are they, and how can you mitigate those? A financial therapist can help both parties kind of work through this and sort this out. But the bottom line is a person needs to give thoughtful consideration of all these factors so that you can really make an informed decision about whether paying a child for in-home health care is the right choice or whether accepting compensation is the right thing for you as the child. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to being with you next week. Take care. Thanks for joining me, Rick Kahler, for another episode of Financial Therapy. It's not just about the money. This is where I combine the nuts and bolts of financial advice with the emotions that drive making them. Remember, every financial behavior, whether it appears illogical to you or others, makes perfect sense when we understand the underlying beliefs, feelings, and thoughts. Sign up for my weekly blog at financialawakenings.com. I hope you'll join me again for our next episode.